Now let's get insights from Michael Ricafort, Chief Economist of RCBC. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Michael.
Hello, good morning to everyone, and nice to be back.
All right, there's this discussion of a possible four-day work week, no? Ano ba ang ano nito? Pros and cons nito? Because I'm sure there are benefits also, but there are also downsides to this.
Yeah, true, Angela and Angela. No, so
Yes. Yes, go ahead, po. Can you hear us?
yeah, the challenge there, it's the cost-benefit analysis of doing this, no? Kasi of course, it's there's a saving in yes, I can hear you. So it's really it's really the savings on oil on one hand, and also the savings on uh well well of course there would be foregone productivity in the workplaces. So that would be the decision point, no? So would the savings, say the one day that would be saved on energy price, on energy costs, whether it's on fuel, on electricity, vis-a-vis the productivity that may be lost for that one day. So it's really a delicate balancing act, no, to so to speak. So if that if we are to assess the viability of that proposal, but this is not really new for the Philippines. We had a similar situation like 9 months ago, last June, and even more than 2 years ago. That was October of 2023. That was the Israel-Hamas war.
Yeah.
And 4 years ago, it was much worse. No, it was much worse. The Russia-Ukraine war. Oil was much higher back then. NYMEX oil was 92. It started at 92. It sharply increased to 130 in just 2 weeks' time. But now, the NYMEX oil is doing at 79. Last night, it was at 82. It's already slightly higher compared to the levels in June. So this is not really new. These proposals also, and the country already has a template in dealing with these, no? Like, for instance, we have been getting, there's already that list of conservation measures by the various, say, government offices to save on cooling, to save on how they use electricity. Same goes with our subsidies programs, for instance. Targeting the most vulnerable sector. And there's mandated by law on excise taxes. Say, once oil for consistently breaches above 80, there would be a temporary suspension in the collection of excise taxes. But there's no such thing as, across the board, suspension on those on those taxes and similar taxes. But the thing is, the approach is rather targeted. On, for instance, even before the pandemic, whenever we have situation like these, no, there's a targeted subsidies, say for the transport sector, and also for the fisher folk, because fishing vessels, bangka, and the bigger shipping vessels, especially the smaller ones, they consume a lot of, in their cost structure, oil, the crude, or to power the bangkas and the fishing vessels account for a large part of their costs, and also for farmers, because, of course, there's a need to transport the produce,
Right.
no? And so it's targeted that way. The objectives of which is to prevent, at least to mitigate, and for them not to pass on the cost to the
Right.
consumer. So those have been they have been proven, time-tested, age-old practices. For instance, even conservation for the general public, just to stick to, say, to essential travels, avoid unnecessary travels, and if and when possible, practicable and safe, just walking would do, or taking bicycles, and so on and so forth. And now there have been fairly new trends in recent years. The use of, now electric vehicles, they don't have headaches. Those who own electric vehicles, they don't have to queue up. That's the least of their problems
Yeah.
now, to gas up. While the rest of the general public, this has been the template whenever there are world oil prices go up and it's becoming imminent for local diesel and gasoline prices to go up. They're now queuing at the gasoline
Yeah.
stations.
Michael,
So, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, Michael, I was wondering, no, it's good that you mentioned yung targeted solution because I was wondering, is this even realistic, itong 4-day work week in an economy where many workers are in retail, transportation, and informal setup?
Yeah, true, Angela. Yeah, that's the viability of that. Actually, that has been well up there, being proposed, say for a few years already. No, and well, it reemerges when during situations such as these, whenever there's say, either a looming or an actual spike in local fuel pump prices, and so yeah, true because yeah, you have to weigh if well, there's a foregone cost in terms of productivity by some sectors. It may not really apply to a lot of sectors, especially those on the pull in the physical establishments, stores, offices, and that require face-to-face dealings. And this may be applied maybe selectively, even during the lockdowns, during the pandemic. There are practical applications. Maybe it would be more viable for, say, for those who do well to the BPO or the outsourcing sector, jobs like not all jobs in a typical company, but even before the pandemic, there have been already remote work, say for some IT professionals that can do remote troubleshooting or resolution of IT related concerns or problems and management of IT infrastructure. So it's kind of targeted and selected. It's not really for
For
everyone. So
everyone, yeah.
same goes for subsidies because if you remove the excise taxes, they say on a whole scale, everyone, it would end up first considering just like this is for many years, even from the point of view of the economic team and the economic managers and the fiscal team of the country. Before they say suspend taxes on certain products, like for instance energy products. First, key question: who pays for it? Which group pays for these? If the answer is if this is largely paid by higher income brackets, the wealthier ones, and these
Then-
programs are targeted to the poorest of the poor, so that's kind of hard to justify.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's why so the solution is targeted. Same goes well in this proposed 4-day work week. It's better if it's targeted to certain sectors whenever it's
That are
practicable.
applicable.
It's not really for
Oo.
it's not really. It's hard to implement something that's across the board. True, because it's gonna hurt. Some sectors they would feel that there would be say less people going out, less transport, less sales,
Pero would you believe...
less business in general.
Oo. But would you believe, Michael, na would this meaningfully reduce national energy demand or this will just shift yung consumption?
Kasi in recent years, on top of the conservation measures, that's all templated. No, we've revisit all of these, the authorities, the businesses, the industries, time and again. There have been structural shifts. Actually, this is not really new. Like for instance, in recent years, it's the shift to renewables. The country has always been trying to reduce the dependence on imported oil because we import almost of our oil and petroleum requirements. For instance, in recent years, the biggest investments into the country are largely wind, offshore wind, solar. So it's still veering away, say, from coal, because coal is kind of intertwined with energy prices. Coal is like among the highest in 1.5 years recently. And of course, it also there's also impact on other related energy sources. That's a benchmark for pricing other energy sources. But nonetheless, it's really diversifying away, reducing the reliance. Now there are big investments into wind, offshore wind, solar, and even for many years, past three, 4, or even 5 decades, the country has been aggressive in building up, say, geothermal power sources. For instance, at some point, the Philippines is #2 in the world for geothermal, but now it's #3 because Indonesia ramped up its capacity. And also, we have Malampaya reserves for natural gas, at
Okay.
least for the past 20 to 30 years. And there's been, there's a recent discovery on new reserves on Malampaya. So,
Okay.
and also for hydro for a very long time.
Mm-mm.
Even at some point, years or even decades back, at some point in Mindanao, about half of its power source coming from hydro. But now, of course, because of the booming Mindanao economy, so the power requirements suddenly spiked up. So they diversified also. But nonetheless, those renewable energy sources are structural in nature.
Right.
And of course, now electric vehicles. So there's still many vehicles on the street. That's a
Oo.
reality. Vehicle sales about 500,000 per year. Yeah, they're increasing EV sales, yes, hybrid vehicles, but there's still a lot of internal combustion
Right.
engine vehicles.
But lastly, before we let you go, very quickly na lang, Michael, I was just wondering, because this is one of the major concerns, no, or valid concerns of the workers, na if ever this will be implemented on targeted companies or businesses, and ma-realize nila na, okay pala ang 4-day work week, baka naman daw will this result to downsizing of the company. Sabi, kaya naman pala, so we don't need more people on this side of the business because nagawa naman.
Yeah, true. Those are the realities, actually, Angela. Well, we experienced this also at the height of the pandemic. If there would be work or tasks, maybe businesses, industries that are applicably that can do remote work. So, I mean, that has been kind of tested already back then, no? But now, in recent years, there's also AI, no? Well,
Mm-mm.
depending on how fast it would be deployed, the use of AI to say kind of re-engineer how things are done. True, there's always that risk of rationalizing and downsizing, and the best case we've seen that. Since 2020 and since the height of the lockdowns, when there were restrictions on
Mm-mm.
transport, on going out, so even at some point at the height of the pandemic, 90% of the PPO were work from home. It came to
Yeah.
that point. But of course, there have been changes on laws like even create more, as some of the locators, the registered business enterprises, they're required to enable to avail of those perks under
Right.
create to have, say, 50% workforce on site. So
Oo. Okay.
that's the only difference in recent
Right, right.
years to take into account.
Yeah. Anyway, sabi naman nila kapag work from home yung setup, hindi naman talaga magkakaroon ng decrease ng energy consumption. It will just shift the consumption because gagamitin mo rin yung kuryente doon sa bahay mo lang, not in the office itself. But napakahabang discussion ito. But of course, thank you so much for your time and insights. Michael Ricafort, Chief Economist of RCBC. Thank you for joining us and hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angela, and your viewers. It's nice to be back. Good morning,
Thank
everyone.
you.